Yeah, welcome to another biology class. We have been looking at nutrition, and the area or the aspect we are looking at for now is heterotrophic nutrition. In our class today, we are going to review our previous studies on nutrition. We are going to look at meaning of heterotrophic nutrition, and we are going to look at some types of heterotrophic nutrition. Now, in our previous classes on nutrition, we have defined nutrition as well as food. We said nutrition is a process whereby living organisms obtain food and absorb such food materials such that it can be a source of nutrients for their growth. And we have looked at food as any substance which, when taken in by organisms, is able to give them nutrients by which they can obtain energy for all life processes. Secondly, we have looked at modes of nutrition. We identified two modes of nutrition: autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. Under autotrophic nutrition, we have looked at chemosynthesis and photosynthesis. We define chemosynthesis as a process whereby some living organisms obtain energy for life processes through oxidation of certain compounds. We gave examples of sulfur bacteria, iron bacteria, and so on. We have also looked at the photosynthetic process. We have ended that class and we identified that photosynthesis is the main source of food for all living organisms. For today, we are going to look at heterotrophic nutrition. Now, what is heterotrophic nutrition? It is the mode of nutrition in which organisms take already made food items into their guts before digesting and absorbing such nutrients. Now, you will observe that there is clear difference between autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. In autotrophic nutrition, green plants trap sunlight energy and they use such sunlight energy to synthesize food substance. But in heterotrophic nutrition, organisms take in already made food. They take in already made food. In other words, heterotrophic organisms do not synthesize food. They take in already made food into their guts. Another name for guts is intestine, before digesting the food and absorbing the nutrients. Now, all animals, fungi, some bacteria, and few parasitic flowering plants belong to this group. That is, they carry out heterotrophic nutrition. Secondly, a heterotroph may be macrophagous feeder, that is, using teeth to break large food items before digestion. All mammals are macrophagous feeders. Also, a heterotroph may be a microphagous feeder, that is, organisms feeding on tiny particles of food. Examples include amoeba, paramecium, mosquito larvae, and tilapia. These organisms feed on tiny particles of food, and they are said to be microphagous. Thirdly, a heterotroph may also be a fluid feeder, feeding on food substances that are in fluid form. For example, adult mosquitoes, aphids, sunbirds, and butterflies. They suck food substances in fluid form. They are fluid feeders. Now, let's look at the various types of heterotrophic nutrition. The first one is holozoic nutrition. Holozoic nutrition is a type of nutrition in which food is obtained as a solid organic material, eaten, digested, and absorbed into the body. Now, what differentiates holozoic nutrition from other forms of heterotrophic nutrition is that the food material is taken as solid organic material. Is taken as solid organic material, and it is eaten, digested, and absorbed into the body. Now, reptiles, birds, and mammals, they all carry out what is called holozoic nutrition. Now, there are some few points that we should note about holozoic feeding. One, holozoic organisms search for their food and catch them. Some of these organisms, they have locomotory structures that they can use on terrestrial habitats, forelimbs and hindlimbs, to be able to run and catch their food. And some of them have structures of the body that help them to catch the food. For example, we have reptiles with claws, birds are with sharp beaks, and mammals too, they have forelimbs and hind limbs. They also have teeth or set of tooth that they can use to strangulate their prey. Secondly, they have developed sensory nervous and muscular structures to help the search for food. They are able to search for food because they have built up sensory, nervous, and muscular structures. Thirdly, these organisms that are holozoic in nature, they have effective digestive system to help them break down solid food materials into simple materials for absorption into the body. Now, we should note that holozoic organisms, they may be herbivores. They may be herbivores. We all know the meaning of herbivores. Organisms that feed on green or vegetative parts of plants, like sheep is an herbivore, the goat, and all various members of cattle. Now, carnivores or omnivores. Carnivores include the dogs, the leopard, the cheetah, and so on. Then omnivores, including higher mammals like human beings, they are all holozoic in nature. So human beings carry out holozoic nutrition. Chimpanzees carry out holozoic nutrition. Monkeys carry out holozoic nutrition. Dogs, and so on. They are all holozoic in nature. Now let's move to another type of heterotrophic nutrition, which is saprophytic nutrition. Saprophytic nutrition is a type of nutrition in which non-green plants feed on dead and decaying organic matter. This type of nutrition is carried out by certain organisms which are not green plants. They are non-green plants. They are non-green plants. Non-green plants. They feed on dead decaying organic matter. Now, examples of saprophytes include mucor, which is otherwise called rhizopus. It also includes yeast, mushroom, and some bacteria. This category of bacteria, they are called saprophytic bacteria. We have photosynthetic bacteria or heterotrophic bacteria that carry out chemosynthesis. We have mushroom, which is also an example of fungi. We have yeast and so on, which carry out saprophytic nutrition. Now, some important issues about this saprophytic feeding. One, saprophytes secrete digestive enzymes on the dead organic matter and digest it outside their cells. We call this type of digestion extracellular digestion. For example, if you look at the common rhizopods or mucor or mold, we all know the bread mold and the mold that stays on stale carbohydrate food that we have at home. Some of these molds produce color. They show color. They can show dark color. They can show yellow color. They can show red color. Some of them show orange color. They are all different strains of mold. What they do is that when the spores of this mold falls on organic food material or dead organic matter, the organism secrete digestive enzyme on the dead organic matter and carry out digestion of such food outside their body cells. Then the digested and soluble food substances are then absorbed by the cells of the organism. This is termed extracellular digestion. Extracellular digestion. Now we move to another type of heterotrophic nutrition, which is called symbiotic nutrition, or we call it mutualism. So wherever you see mutualism, note that mutualism is the same thing as symbiotic nutrition. Now, symbiotic nutrition is the type of nutrition in which two organisms of different species live together and depend on each other for food. In other words, this type of nutrition involves two organisms of different species. Two organisms of different species. It involves two organisms of different species. Please note that one. They live together and depend on each other for food. We have several examples. Number one, mutualism exists between algae and fungus in leeches. That's what we call leeches. When you look at the surface of rocks, you see patterns that are there on surface of rock, bare rock surfaces that have been there. Once you have a little moisture there, you see a particular pattern on it. That pattern represents an organism that is called leaching. And if you look at the bark of some woody trees, like orange trees, you see pattern on the bark of such trees that is whitish and greenish in nature. That's an example of leaching. That organism called leaching is an organism formed by association, or that association that's called leaching is formed by two organisms, algae and fungus. The fungus provides moisture, mineral salts, and support for the algae, while the algae generates carbohydrates through photosynthesis for the fungus itself. Algae, are able to photosynthesize. They will provide carbohydrate through photosynthesis, but the fungus provides moisture and mineral salts and support because it protects the algae from drying out when there's no moisture. Secondly, we also have herbivores having cellulose digesting bacteria in their cecum and colon. Cellulose digesting bacteria live in the cecum and colon of herbivores. The bacteria helps in digesting cellulose to useful sugar, while the bacteria derive abundant nutrients as well as shelter from the herbivore. So in these first two examples, we can see clearly that the two organisms that are associating together and having feeding relationship, they gain, each of them gain from the relationship, and none of the two organisms is harmed. Then let's look at other examples Another example is the relationship between the hermit crab and sea animal. The hermit crab finds an empty snail shell and occupies it as a protective housing. He then carries it to wherever it goes. A sea anemone attaches itself to the shell, thus providing camouflage which protects the hermit crab from being eaten by the enemies. So when sea anemone attaches itself to the shell, it is going to provide a camouflage. That is a adaptation. This protects the hermit crab from being eaten by enemies. B. Sea animal gains by feeding on the scraps of food that fall away from the hermit crab's meal. So both of them are actually gaining from their relationship. Now, to the last or to the fourth types of heterotrophic nutrition. Don't forget, we have looked at 3 types of heterotrophic nutrition. The first one was holozoic nutrition. The second one was symbiotic nutrition. The third one was saprophytic nutrition. Now the fourth one that we are looking at now is parasitic nutrition. Parasitic nutrition is a type of nutrition in which one organism called the parasite obtains food from another organism called the host. The parasite benefits while the host is harmed. So you see that this one is a little bit different from what happens in mutualism. In this case, we have 2 organisms also having feeding relationship. One is the parasite and the other one is the host. The parasite lives upon and obtains food from the host. The parasite benefits while the host is harmed. So in this kind of feeding relationship, the host is harmed while the parasite benefits. Now there are 2 main types of parasites. One, ectoparasite, and the other one is the endoparasite. Ectoparasites live on the surface of their host and they obtain food nutrients either by piercing into the host body and sucking from the host body. Examples of ectoparasites include lice, ticks, fleas, mites, and bugs. All of them have piercing or sucking mouth parts with which they trap blood filled with nutrients from the body of their host. Now, endoparasites, on the other hand, live inside the body tissues of their host. They could inhabit the skin tissues, they could inhabit intestines, they could inhabit the liver, they could inhabit several internal tissues of their host. Examples of endoparasites include Plasmodium, which causes malaria. Other examples include hookworm, roundworm, which is also known as ascaris, tapeworm, and liver fluke. All these organisms are endoparasites. Now, endoparasites, they have special structures that makes them to be able to suck nutrients from the tissues of their host. For example, the tapeworm has hooks and suckers on its rostrum, on its head region, with which it sucks nutrients from its host. Whereas ectoparasites have piercing and sucking mouth parts. Now you wonder why roundworms and organisms which inhabit and stay as parasites in the intestine, why they are not moved out with the feces, is because they have anchors, they have hooks through which they attach themselves to the wall of the intestine. These are adaptations for surviving such environments where they living. Now, we also want to note there are some parasitic plants. So plants also carry out parasitic nutrition. For example, some flowering plants live on other plants as parasites. Such plants develop suckers which pierce into the vascular bundles of the host from where it obtains food and water. Now we see that when plants carry out photosynthesis, the prepared food is translocated to all parts of the plants through the vascular bundles, particularly the phloem and the xylem tissues. Now, plants such as dodder plant that is called Casita filiformis, this plant develop suckers that is called heustoria, and it inserts this heustoria into the vascular bundles of the host plant and obtains food and water. Such relationship has to do with parasitic nutrition. Another one is the glebe plants, which supplement their nutrients with organic food by trapping insects, digesting them, and absorbing their amino acids. Some green plants are carnivorous in nature. They are carnivorous in nature. Sometimes we call them carnivorous plants or insectivorous plants. These plants, they have structures that can help them to trap insects. And when they trap such insects, they digest them and absorb such insects. They absorb the nutrients, the amino acids, into their body. So they supplement their nutrients by trapping insects and killing them. Example includes sundew, which is also called Drosera, Venus flytrap, pitcher plant, which is also called Nepenthes. Other examples include bladderwort and butterwort. We know the pitcher plant as a pitcher. Through its pitcher, the pitcher is like a container that has an open end. Once the insect moves towards the pitcher and enters into the pitcher, the organism is able to fold the pitcher up and digest the insect that is trapped. Bladderwort too, or the Venus flytrap, also has a trap with which it traps insects, digests them, and absorbing so that it can use the nutrients as supplement for all that it can